For decades, the media in Libya served as not much more than propaganda tools for Muammar Gaddafi. However, in the wake of the revolution, and in some cases even before the fall of the regime, Libyans have seen an explosion of brand new media outlets. By the middle of last year, there were more than 120 new publications, as well as fresh alternatives on the radio and television airwaves. And in a country where a year ago media freedom was on a par with North Korea and Somalia, journalists are enjoying their new liberties. They're writing, publishing, and broadcasting material they find newsworthy. This new generation of Libyan journalists is trying to make up for its lack of training and experience through sheer energy and enthusiasm. The Listening Post's Phillips now on a magazine called The Libyan, which is coming off a printing press in Tripoli and trying to find a readership in a country where for 40 years journalism has existed in a state of hibernation.
The home of the Libyan, first issued in the throes of the revolution last May.
This is the printing machine. Papers are put here, ink, and then it comes out from the other side.
40 glossy pages of Libyan politics, economics and culture.
They take it here at the end to cut it and make it the size that we're looking for.
With a circulation of 6,000 copies every month and content entirely generated by the magazine's 29-year-old editor-in-chief.
They're all our pictures. We work with different photographers, work with different journalists, different writers to put the magazine together. Let's say half of the magazine is political. The political scene seems to be the most important. And at the end, it's the culture and history. Because, you know, for the past 40 years, we didn't know much about the history and the culture of Libya as well, you know. We lived in a media blackout.
Not anymore. The concept of press freedom is novel to Libyans. And for lots of young journalists like Ibrahim, a very welcome change. The National Transitional Council has been largely welcoming of new media outlets. Just days after the new cabinet was sworn in, delegates attended a two-day media conference, stressing its priority to reimagine the national media system.
يجب أن يكون في ليبيا إعلام مستقل ومفتوح يعطي صورة انطباعا مغاير عما كان في ليبيا في السابق.
The Libyan is just one example of independent free media that has exploded onto the scene in the last year.
I mean, this is something that happened almost overnight with the revolution, with the liberation. People who have lived for decades under the thumbs of the Gaddafi and his clan, now they are basically taking advantage of this opportunity.
It has started from the first day that Benghazi was liberated. And we noted that more than 80 newspapers in Benghazi, more than 60 in Muzarata when it was liberated, and in Tripoli now more than 26 or 30 newspapers.
We have now more than 200 networks there, broadcast, radio, television, as well as print and online. Unfortunately, because of 40 years of oppression, and 40 years of denial of access of information, many of the outlets need a lot of work because the infrastructure to begin with was non-existent.
Unlike its Arab neighbors, Egypt and Tunisia, which experienced limited freedom of the press, Libya is pretty much a virgin territory when it comes to media. Gaddafi dictated the narrative for more than 40 years, a one-man band, always singing from the same green songbook.
Under Gaddafi's regime, there was no free press. All the journalists or writers has to select their words, otherwise they'll be in trouble. If you criticize the regime itself, Gaddafi or one of his sons, then you are in real trouble.
Gaddafi had two major satellite stations, one controlled by him and the other one was controlled by his son. And both studios existed in Tripoli. Nothing existed in Benghazi because he wanted to centralize everything and keep everything under his control.
For the past 40 years as well, we only had state-owned media. We're only used to one voice. Magazines, newspapers, they all speak the same language. Now they're following different parties, supporting different political figures, and it's different.
Different for the readers and exciting for the journalists in Libya. But the quality of the output doesn't exactly match up to the quantity, and there are reasons for this. Back in the Gaddafi days, his public press authority tightly controlled the flow of information, spinning the story right to the very end.
Tripoli is well protected.
The legacy of that era is that many of Libya's journalists are entirely new to the field and haven't had a chance to build up their skills.
The media in Libya is in a chaos situation. They don't have a management to lead them and to have a sort of a roadmap for them, how to talk, how to select their topics. They just do it without having the know-how that we are talking about.
They realize that they lack professionalism. I feel that the youth and the young people who came into the industry, they realize that they need help and they need training.
The magazine established by young Libyans, you know. None of us had the experience. We were on the front line. We were around the cities, you know, at the beginning in Benghazi, then in Tripoli, the liberation of Tripoli, and Misrata. We're not trained. It's all new, and we are trying to overcome this obstacle.
And getting past these obstacles in Libya's newly liberated media space is a bigger challenge than some might imagine. It's a learning curve, not just for journalists, but for a Libyan society unused to being scrutinized by the media. Rula Abu Bakr works for the Libyan magazine. An article she wrote, published back in October, revisited tensions experienced by doctors and nurses in one of Tripoli's central hospitals during the revolution. She didn't expect the feedback she received.
The story was of how much they've been suffering throughout the revolution. It upset some people because I mentioned some names. I mentioned Dr. Masoud al-Sabi that was helping nurses to get to the Green Square to support Gaddafi. He was really angry. At first, it was him going around the hospital and just getting angry. Then it got bigger. Then it was just like him threatening, he wants to sue me, he wants to sue the magazine. So I just ignored that. And then he took other measures, which is trying to pull my dad into it. It kind of makes you feel like you still can't say anything you want at the moment. You still can't say what is exactly really going on here. You know, you're going to know someone's behind your back planning something.
Libya faces myriad challenges in the months ahead, but new media outlets like the Libyan, prepared to speak truth to power, are well positioned to make a serious contribution to the debate over its country's future.
The difference today is the fact that Libyans have options. They have more than 200 media outlets. It's creating a confusion because we're going from nothing into having hundreds of opinions out there.
But who's really complaining? For the first time in 42 years, Libyans can actually watch, listen and read whatever they want, whenever they want to.